Thanks all for coming. I'm gonna start the evening by telling a little bit about the project. I'm also gonna give the guys of Jinny a chance to talk a bit about their exhibition and their gallery space. And then I have a very interesting panel. I'll start off with Joosje, who wrote an essay about the reasons behind IKEA. She will tell you shortly why there are so many of these abandoned buildings. Matthew does lovely work on bringing the right IKEA to the right person, but also is working on data analysis of IKEA, where they are, how they can be reused, which ones can be reused, which ones not. And Kay is actually ex-IKEA owner. He made it into a hostel and a boxing, do I say training school, boxing school? Is it all of the above?
Yeah, I do boxing training for the guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a very special hostel, hotel kind of place. And afterwards we have a small walk through the neighborhood where we can see the whole exhibition. The works here are all part of the Lost World. It was a project for me that started purely coincidental. I just stumbled upon, the first one was a really big hotel/theater. I had been to Japan quite a lot of times, and I wanted to see the countryside because I'd never really seen the countryside. I went around with trains, but it's a very different experience from driving through this country with a car. So I rented the bus together with Eve, who's over there helping out with everything. And within 2 hours of Tokyo, we found this really huge white space with no more front door. So we were like, what's this? Could we go in? So we parked our van very much in the middle, in front of it, on the parking space there. Also with the idea that if we weren't supposed to go in, people would come and tell us, because we were very obviously there. And we had the luck that the local English teacher was walking by, the only person in the village probably who spoke decent English, and they were like, hey, what are you doing here, foreigners? I was like, well, I'm traveling, but we're very curious to see this space, this hotel, can we go in? And he had been living there for 8 years, and he had no idea. He said, I walk past this every day to my work and back. I've never seen anybody there. I've never been in. I have no idea. You probably can go in because nobody apparently cares. And that was very typical, I found, for all of the locations we've seen. We've spent 2 months in all of these places, and sometimes we saw 3 or 4 locations in a day because I got really obsessed with it after the first one. Also, there's so many, so once you go driving, you will see them everywhere. And very rarely, if we saw people, we checked if we could go in. Very rarely people actually told us, we prefer you not go in. Sometimes when the neighbors were there, they were like, no, please don't, which was of course fine, but most cases people just shrugged. They were like, don't know, don't care. And I think that's very typical of how the Japanese deal with these locations. There are so many, they don't care anymore. It's so abundant. For me, I'm from the Netherlands, and in the Netherlands we only know shortages of houses. We have a shortage of 300,000 houses for our population. So, and we also have a history of squatters, where if the house is not occupied, people will move in and live there because there's an empty house and we really need houses. So for me, it was really, and also I have some friends who squat, for me it was really like, because I also know Japan has a homeless problem, why is nobody moving in here? Why is nobody looking at any of this? And the first location was weird because the hotel area had been cleared out, it had been sold, like is usual in the Netherlands at least. If something goes bankrupt, you sell everything to pay off your debts. But the theater part was still completely intact. There was still a sound system, there was still lights, there was still decor on the stage, there were still benches, there was still booze. Oh yeah? I could not comprehend, also probably because I'm from the Netherlands, where if a building is left unattended for too long, everything gets stolen, which is a very bad trait of the Dutch, but it is what happens. everything gets cleared out, and then after we saw location after location after location where everything had been left behind. I never took anything except for this, because I could not comprehend somebody leaving their wedding pictures. I distorted her to make her the space of, or make her the ghost of the Akia and make her less recognizable. But how, I understand if you leave personal belongings, but your wedding pictures? Then again, there's an image over there, and I think it was a one-bedroom apartment, so this was pretty much all the space there was. But everything was still there. This was actually a space where I was very afraid we'd find somebody dead there who had just been left and forgotten. And you also find a lot of these lonely spots if you go looking for them. On the first year, 2018, we drove from Tokyo to Hiroshima. On the way up, we drove to Fukushima, so that was a very eerie neighborhood as well. And there was a lot of emptiness, but also even there was also a lot of beauty. You see the plants growing back in, you see animals making it their own house, and I also found that it brought something that I think the Netherlands kind of lacks. We have everything planned out. All our forest, for example, everything's planned and planted. There's nothing left to the nature itself. So it was also kind of beautiful. There's one big fabric over there. You see the tree growing into the toilets at an onsen. Yeah, it's beautiful, just for the nature taking back over. So while the reasons behind them are pretty depressing, the locations themselves are often really beautiful. There's a stillness in those. There's a beautiful. It's sad, but there's often also a beautiful feeling just to be there. And I would really like to invite Josje to explain a bit about why there are so many IKEA, because I am just a photographer. I photographed what I saw, and I had a lot of questions, and I Googled a bit, but I didn't really do the research she did. So it might be nice to have her say something about that.
Do you want me to stand up or do you want me to sit down?
You can sit if you like.
Okay. I'll just
Which
stand
you
up.
prefer.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. Hi, nice to meet you all. So I am Josephine, you can call me Josje, my friends do, and you're my friends now, so that's fine. I'm really happy to be here tonight. Thank you so much for inviting me over here for this wonderful exhibition for Without Us, which is like a selection of works from the Lost Worlds, which is a big project which made it into several exhibitions in the Netherlands, of course some articles from CNN and stuff, and then now also in Tokyo, and also a photo book for which I wrote an essay to explain the whole occurrence of Akia in Japan. I'm sorry, do I have to talk into the microphone?
I think it's okay.
Okay, it's fine. I'll just shout.
It's fine.
Close enough, it's fine.
Okay, it's good. Yeah, so and also thank you very much to Jinny Gallery, because I think it's the most fitting gallery one could have picked, or like
Yes.
to show her photos in. I mean, it is just the abandoned boxes on the streets to accompany like the abandoned building exhibition is just perfect in my opinion. So thank you very much. I just went around yesterday and today, and it's looking very nice. So really nice. Okay, so here I go. So yeah, I'm here to describe more about the reasons that these Akia and Akibiru and Akichi and everything that's like Aki, so like empty, vacant, exists. Also Haikyo, which is more like unusable ruins, which is what happens to Akia if they are left too long unattended, of course. I myself live in Nagasaki Prefecture at the moment, so it was relatively easy to come here to Tokyo to speak at this opening. And in Nagasaki, so I have this book because I have a lot of numbers and statistics, so I cannot remember them all, so I wrote them down. So my dear Nagasaki Prefecture has a 15.07% percentage rate of Akia buildings, which is higher than the national average, which is only 13.16%, I believe. But of course, also, it's also higher than the Tokyo average, which is only 10% of all the buildings, which is still a lot if you consider how crowded Tokyo might seem, but it's of course mostly the suburbs. And Nagasaki is considered also more of a rural area, so you can see more Akia in suburbs and rural areas. It's not as much though as Yamanashi Prefecture, which has a staggering 21.7% of all houses being vacant, which is, if you imagine, is 1 in 5 houses. So in your street there could be a lot of houses empty, which is unimaginable to a lot of people, me included of course, but still, if you look at Nagasaki, it's still 1 in 7 houses that is empty, which is just, well, it seems like a big problem, and it is, so yeah. 13.6% of all houses is a lot. It's 8.6 million houses in total. And that is actually enough to house the entire population of Switzerland, just to imagine how much houses are being left empty. So the Nomura Research Institute actually has estimated that these numbers will keep on rising and rising, especially because the largest group of homeowners is the baby boom generation, who will all after 2025 turn 75 plus and eventually will pass away. And what happens to the houses, we don't really know. But they just estimated around 2032, maybe 1 in 3 houses will be left empty, which is like, just if you look at your neighbors, it will be one of them, which is just very, a lot of houses. So of course, traveling to Japan means some of all these houses, very beautiful, I agree, but it's also, I agree, but it's also a cause for a lot of problems, because empty houses, though beautiful, they also invite unwanted guests, they also invite pests, rats, and also it's just a very, like, a fire hazard, disaster hazard. If the house is left unattended for so long, who takes care of the maintenance? If an earthquake happens and it collapses, it could hurt people, it could do a lot of damage on the infrastructure. It is just a very big problem that is becoming worse and worse and worse. But how did this big problem came to existence? Okay, so first of all, demographic change. The population of Japan has been declining for almost 10 years now. In 2009, it has the biggest population yet, with 128, like in the Netherlands we say it's backwards, so 128 million people in Japan, and the Nomura Institute has predicted it will be under 100 million in 30 years. So that is a big change in demographic. And also the birth rate, it is getting lower and lower. Each year we see a decline in birth rates. This goes hand in hand with Japan having the honor of having the longest living people. Like, people get very old here, which is nice, of course. However, if people are not getting born, that means that there is not a big enough working force to support this graying population. So the welfare costs are gonna soar. So what you want for population is an onion shape, is what I've been told by my professor in uni. So it's the very young people are kind of not a lot, and then you have big workforce, and then you have just a little bit of old people population. So they have enough taxable people, to take care of all the costs for either the children and the old people. But now what we see is more a funnel. So we have not a lot of small children, we have not a lot of workforce, but we have a lot of old people. So it's getting difficult. So you need a lot of money to go out in the system to take care of everything. And where do you find the good jobs and the good education to take care of this? This is in the cities. So the next part of the problem is urbanization. You see, people have been going from the countryside into the cities for decades now. Of course, always does modernization bring upon some kind of, a little bit of urbanization, but in the case of Japan, it's been sped up. Of course, since the 1990s economic crisis and also the 2008 economic crisis, people have been looking for jobs, stable income, a good education, also, of course, amusement, and you cannot really find it anymore in the countryside. So they've been pulling up to the cities, which leaves all these, mostly older people behind in the smaller villages. And if they pass away, what will happen to them? Well, they will probably die out as villages. Also, according to the Nomura Research Institute, by 2040, almost 900 of these small rural villages will die out because there will be no more population left. And there are hundreds of villages right now that are designated as Genkai Shuraku, which means communities on the edge of existing. So this is a big problem. and we see it everywhere in Japan and also around the world, but especially in Japan. So, let me check the notes. Okay, we have urbanization, we have demographic change, check, and now we have Japan's policies and legislation, because of course in Europe we also see graying. We like Italy is also having a very big population decline. In the Netherlands we also have a very big graying population, but still we have a housing shortage and not a housing like well, surplus, yes, not shortage. So this comes all to Japan's policies and legislation. So Japan's post-war politics and policies were actually built on construction, like rapid growth through construction. If you just, of course, rebuild the country, make a lot of new houses and schools, but also keep people working and have like this economic cash flow going on. People get jobs, they spend their money. It's an economic miracle. That's what they said, at least until the 70s, when the economic miracle kind of stopped. But they still kept on constructing because it went very well for a long time. So why would they stop with constructing? But in the 1990s, of course, the economic bubble burst. Japan fell into a big recession with the rest of Asia, actually. And still, they were going on with the construction, even though it was not necessary anymore at all. By the 2000s, they finally decided, well, maybe we have enough buildings now, and they finally stopped building. Well, not completely, of course, but funding for new projects was stopped, and not a lot of new houses were made. I remember when I was in uni, there was this one class, and my teacher told me that at some point in like the 80s and 90s, they were just building away. They were just making roads into the nothingness just to have people working and having them have income and to have just construction going on. Also, in the movie Spirited Away, you see Chihiro is going to this deserted amusement park, and her father says something like, "Oh yeah, this is something that they just built a lot of in the 90s." It's just common knowledge. There's a lot of useless, unused buildings in Japan. So I'm just going on. So they have constructed a lot, which explains why we have a lot of houses. However, the houses in Japan have a very short lifespan. Usually houses are like 20 or 30 years old, and they have never been made to go on for a long time, like we have, for example, in the Netherlands, where we have like all these stone houses because we don't have earthquakes and stuff, so we can build more sturdily, I guess. And then also in the 1981 there was this new the building standard law, which was amended to have some more strict regulations about having earthquake-proof buildings, which means that all buildings built before 1981 had to live up to these standards. And these standards are pretty expensive if you want to like remodel your whole house to live up on them. So people had to choose, like, am I gonna just buy a new house, or do I have to like remodel my old house, which is gonna cost probably more money than buying a new house? And since in Japan like a new house is usually better anyways, why would you invest in remodeling? Because it doesn't make sense. So we have new houses again, and old houses are just being left abandoned, unused, just into nothingness, because also homeowners didn't really have to register it at that point in time. Oh, my nose, my god, there's so much. Yes, so then in 2015 the Local Tax Act reform finally ended the fact that so many people could have all these empty houses, because before then an empty plot would cost 6 times more than having an empty house. But since 2015 this new law dictated that if your house has been said by the local government, like, hey, this is actually an akiya, it's not being well maintained, it will be now seen as an empty plot, so you would still have to pay a lot of taxes. So homeowners would be encouraged to finally demolish their houses, or maybe make some amendments to their houses. Furthermore, there is also the issue of ownerless houses, like I just said before, a lot of unregistered houses, which makes it very difficult for the local governments to find out which houses are akiya, which are still in use. and who owns them, how do we deal with them, we cannot contact them, what do we do? And it's not easy like, oh yeah, we think it's abandoned so we can just demolish it. No, you cannot do that because it's somebody's property. But in 2015 there was also this new law, the Japanese special measure law to further a response to vacant housing, which actually allowed the government to do more research on the homeowners and also to really ask them like, hey, you have to do this or we will demolish it ourselves or maybe repurpose it at some point. The 2021 real estate registration law finally made it mandatory for people to register that they are homeowners, so that's also a big help. Also, there has been this issue of inheritance taxes. Those are very high in Japan. So if somebody passes away and has a house, the heir might not claim it because, well, the inheritance tax is very high. And then also you have to remodel the house, is very high. So why would you just claim it? You can just like leave it open, and that adds to the problem of the empty houses. So I know it's a lot of information. I'm sorry, I'm also getting cooked a little bit myself. So like these also new laws and policies are one way of battling the IKEA problem, which has now of course become a problem. It's a little bit too late, but they're trying at least to do something to tackle it. But there's been other ways of repurposing these IKEA, such as IKEA banks, which of course Matthew knows more about than I do, and Kai also has his own experience with IKEA and like repurposing and remodeling it. So I'll leave the expert talk to them. But of course IKEA sound very nice because you might have seen all these foreign newspapers with titles like, oh, you can own a house in Japan for only $500 and it's in the countryside, it is beautiful and it's big, and yes it is, but also needs remodeling. There might be some extra things that you have to do. For example, if you move to a countryside and it has a plot of land, you might be, well, asked or kind of persuaded by the local government, like, hey, you can have this house, but you also have to take care of the land. You also have to be a farmer now. So there's a lot of like hooks and hooks. What do we say? Oh, hooks and stuff.
This is a Dutch expression. It doesn't translate.
There's a lot of different. So there's it's not as simple as just buying a cheap, beautiful house in the countryside. It's never that easy. You always know it's going to be something else, because if it was that easy, there would not be a problem, of course. So this kind of set the stage for everything. And then, of course, outside of all the legislation, policies, demographic change and everything, we also have natural disasters such as earthquakes. The 2011 big Great East Japan earthquake, of course, left at first like hundreds and thousands, and now still there's over 40,000 people displaced without homes. They cannot return to their homes. They don't want to return to their homes, maybe because of traumatic memories, of course, maybe because of fear of radiation, or because their communities have all been collapsed. So why should they go back to that area? The same going, of course, now in the Noto area, where on January 1st a big earthquake struck, and until now still over 10,000 people are without homes. So there are still homes, but like, how do we do this, and what happens with people who also passed away? And it is a very big problem, and registration was really hard, and this has all made up the stage for the topic of mass fiction, actually. So I hope you could understand everything. Thank you all for listening, and I am done with this explanation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I realized I forgot to introduce Jinny. Yay. So it might be nice to have a short introduction of your gallery.
All right.
Go.
Me?
You're closer.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice to meet you guys. My name is Lorenzo. His name is Toto. We do Jinny Street Gallery together. Just like a brief introduction on, I see many new faces, pretty much all of you guys. Just a brief introduction on what Jinny Street Gallery is probably some of you already saw that. It's next here. It's, how would you explain that?
It's a street lamps with integrated like exhibition cases in them.
Yeah, so basically,
which were kind of semi-abandoned in a way, which kind of works very well with the exhibition.
Exactly. So basically, we thought when we first met Man, we thought that the topic was really sharing a lot of points in common with what we do. And the topic of Akia basically, because Jinny Street Gallery was built in 2014 and was built for promotion purposes, for like marketing, advertising. So basically, at the beginning, before it was Jinny Street Gallery, it was like a group of 42 poles around the street with these tiny display cases inside it, which they went abandoned after I don't know, like a couple of years. And sometimes someone was using it as a recon, but most of the time were completely empty. The last few years were completely abandoned to themselves. They were covered, like they were scratched. There were a lot of graffitis and everything. So before that, through our common friends, me and Toto met each other. We do photography as well. We love art. And we decided to give like a new meaning of existence to these abandoned places, and we decided to turn these display cases into a street gallery, which is like a walking type of new art experience, we think. So for this reason, when we first met Man, we really thought that this exhibition could really match what we sit on, basically, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And so we started last year. We every month we change exhibitions, and we try to, since it's like a vertical format. Maybe you've seen it later after the talk. It's like a vertical format, so it's like a bit challenging for an artist, because usually also photography you shoot portrait, you don't shoot vertical, so it's you have to think of the concept, and we try to engage the artist. We try to motivate and talk and exchange ideas and everything. And I really think that Man managed to give a really good exhibition, and which we will go seeing after this one. Toto, you want to add anything?
Oh, good.
Okay, thank you. Leave the word to the expert.
Okay, I think it might be good to give a short introduction. First, you, Kai, maybe then you, Matthew, of who you are and why I invited you, because you both have very personal experiences with Akia.
Okay.
You
nice.
can stand, but you can also sit. It's more
okay.
relaxed,
Nice.
I think.
Nice to meet you. I'm from Japan, and I'm from Gunma Prefecture. Have you guys been to Gunma?
Yes.
Yes. Nice. It's famous for the hot springs, and I think it's best in Japan. It's one hot spring, Kusatsu hot spring.
Oh yeah.
You been to there? Yeah. It's, no. It's a really good place. Yeah. So and then after graduating university, I worked in the Japanese company for 4 years. It was really tough 4 years. Maybe as you know, I was like a slave for the company. So don't work for the Japanese company.
It's too late.
Are you working in Japanese company? Yeah, and so after 4 years, I quit Japanese company and then became a boxer. I wanted to be a pro, so I became a professional boxer. And then after I won the fight, I started traveling for 9 years. I was traveling abroad for 9 years. And then, so naturally, while I was traveling, I wanted to open the hostel in Japan. And then 2018, I came back to Japan, and I opened a hostel in Kanagawa Prefecture. And then been running hostel for nearly 6 years, So that's my story. Yeah.
You didn't just open a hostel, you repurposed an abandoned house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, the house was my grandpa's. So my father inherited from my grandpa, and then I renovated the house. Yeah. Yeah, that's a story.
Yeah. Did you grow up there?
No, no.
Or did you spend summers there or never?
No, never.
Never.
I actually almost never met my grandpa, so I didn't know the house.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So it was a gamble for you a bit, or did you go to see it first?
Yeah. So 2018, I was supposed to be temporarily come back to Japan, and then my father told me, grandpa left the house, and which I didn't know, and then I wanted to check it out, and I saw it, and I thought I can make it to the hostel. So, and then so I stopped the traveling. I was supposed to go to the Europe.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So life happened and
Yeah.
everything
so-
changed.
Yeah. So I changed my plan and then started the hostel right away.
And is it because you're not? I think a lot of the tourists really have this strict route through Japan where they see Tokyo, Osaka, maybe they go to Kyoto.
Yeah.
Is it hard to find people because you are a bit out
Yeah.
in the
yeah,
countryside?
yeah.
Is it okay?
But I knew that if you have a good review on the
Yes.
Airbnb or Booking.com,
Yeah.
people come. I knew it because I was a traveler. So I wasn't so much worried about the travelers might not come. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty smart
What's
to
the
think.
name of the place?
Yes.
Vanguard Backpackers.
Vanguard
Backpackers.
Backpack.
Where
Yeah.
is it in Kanagawa?
Sagamihara.
Sagamihara.
But,
Okay, yeah, it's kind of close from my
Oda
family
Oda
house.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
Q
It's,
Oda Q.
no, Chuo line.
Chiu line.
Yeah. Just one station away from Takao.
Ah, okay. So
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
And
would like to split it a little bit more that way as well. The people.
oh yeah, if people want to join, maybe we can scoop in even.
Also,
Yeah, the bathroom is over here.
Sorry.
there's also some chairs over there. So.
Yeah. And there's two more chairs over there if somebody wants to sit. But your hostel, you also, I heard you had a hot spring next door, and you do box training as well, right?
Sauna.
Sauna! Oh, even better.
The sauna, 2 years ago, I built a sauna by the river. By the river. So, and the river is a beautiful one. So after sauna, you can dive into the river. Perfect. Yeah, so, yeah. And I do a boxing training for the guest for free.
Like
I've done it.
experience.
Yeah.
You've done it?
Yeah.
So
I have video of it.
he was a guest in my hostel. Yeah.
Like 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. Yeah. It's great. You gotta go.
And maybe Matthew, you can also introduce yourself because you're in a very different
Yeah.
corner of the IKEA business.
So I'm Matt Ketchum, originally from the States. I've been in Japan for about 12 years, but between 2009 and 2016, and then 2019 till now. I've done a lot of stuff. I got into Akia. This is a fun little known fact. I originally got into Akia because of like extreme metal, like rock and roll. I'm a musician. I play in black metal bands. And in 2015, and I'm also a booker and I do all this stuff, right? And so in 2014 or so, I started documenting, like databasing the independent extreme music scene of Japan, which is great. You gotta check it out. It's very difficult to find. And so in doing this over the years and whatnot, I kind of developed a methodology of how to analyze and gather data and, strip it of, various different impurities and then create like, oh my God, here's X, Y, or Z finding and whatnot. It's really cool stuff. But anyway, when I guess it was probably 2016, or when those articles about Akia first started coming out, I was reading them like everybody else, thinking like, oh boy, free houses, like ho ho ho. Can't be true. And they kept throwing around these numbers though. They're always like, they were quoting things, but without any citation. I was like, well, this is kind of bullshit. Date, like, where's the citation? What are you referencing? Which kind of like I just don't like. I very much dislike dirty data. So I just started digging into it myself in places that I used to live. Like I was up in Iwate and Miyako. I've been down in Shiga, in Hikone. Currently have a spot in Yugawara, blah, 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 blah. And I'd just been doing that as a hobby. And then coronavirus happened. And at that time, I was the executive director for the Canadian Chamber. Lorenzo was, where Lorenzo go? Yeah, right. Yeah. And at that time, like a lot of people started just kind of coming to me saying like, oh my God, I'm terrified of Tokyo. I don't want to leave Japan, but like, oh, how do I get out of the metropolis and during a pandemic? Not knowing that I had been researching like exactly where they might be able to go. So my response was like, oh no, actually, like you want to leave Tokyo? Do you have $60,000? And some people did. That's kind of how the business originally started. So I basically started working, not like a matchmaking service. I mean, I guess kind of a matchmaking service, but basically, you know, real estate is complicated. Anything is complicated. Art is complicated, right? What you think, right, is good art versus what I think is good art versus what you think is good real estate versus, you know, all of this stuff. Like it's a unique thing that isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of issue, right? Yet, real estate, especially in Japan, is up until very recently, been very heavily marketed as a house equals, you know, between 80 and 120 square meters, and it's 2 stories, and it's, you know, within the metro area, and, you know, X, Y, and Z, right? Which certainly works for some people. In normal times, in like normal settings, whatever normal means, but for those who are interested in anything that lies outside of standard deviation, it's exceedingly difficult to find Akia, right? Which is basically, they're weird real estate, they're non-standard real estate, right? Maybe they're abandoned, maybe they're vacant, maybe they're unused, like there's any number of kind of ways you can refer to them, depending on the circumstances, but the fact is, regardless of how you refer to it or define it, they're difficult to find because of the business model that runs real estate in Japan. And so that's what kind of my background in Akia. It's like heavy metal and then abandoned houses. Oh, I do need to mention monkeys though. Because so like in Yugawara, there's a bunch of monkeys, right? In like Hakone area. And so you were talking about Haikyo. And so I have very specific experiences with pests, which and right next door to the spot that I have in Yugawara, which is an ex-Akia that a friend of mine bought. It's the Hoyojo of Seino Unyu, which is like a logistics company, like a shipping company. So that one's cool. I've got a spot there, but then right next door there's a Haikyo, right, which is like Akia extreme, like you can't fix it sort of stuff. That one's wrapped. And like 3 years ago or so, there's this big veranda out top on the 3rd floor where my room is, and it's nice and stuff. But then again, there's this Haikyo next door, right? And there's like trees and stuff growing on it, and there's all of these roving monkeys, macaque monkeys in Yugawara. Yes. And like 2 or 3 years ago, they busted the roof open, right? And so now they're like occasionally living in the Haikyo next door, which got me thinking though, of like, is there like an underground network of like monkey houses?
Probably.
In Yugawara, like they know where they're living and stuff. So yeah, and even that to me is interesting. Like they're kind of a nuisance, but yeah, even that is kind of like I don't know, fun.
It is. In a lot of the old places I found, there was also a lot of pests like bats and angry raccoons, very angry raccoons. Here and there, the big pigs, wild boars.
Oh yes. But they're also delicious.
But they can be very territorial and aggressive, so if you see them, I'm still a bit like, I'm gonna sit in my car now.
Yeah, like it's one of the side effects of urbanization is like the nature taking back like these lands. You seen in the last couple of years news articles of monkeys going into villages and actually like biting babies, or Inishishi attacking people on the streets. There have been more bear attacks in recent years because, of course, people are like there are less than people on the street. So the nature wants to take back, like you said, like the trees growing into like the toilets over there on the picture.
There was this horror story, like, I don't know if it was fake news, I guess it was sensationalized, about radioactive boars in the Namian area, like around Fukushima. They had like all the boars taking over, but they were like grazing the ground, which was radioactive.
Yeah.
So
Oh my god.
there was this headline like radioactive boars.
Lighting up at night.
And Matthew, I was very curious.
Yeah.
How do people find you, and are there a lot of people? Because I think everybody here has seen the endless supply of news articles about you can buy a house for cheap in Japan. Do you have a lot of people coming to you saying like, hey, I have 500 euros, let's buy something?
Not anymore. Like
Okay.
at the start, I've done a pretty good job of sort of segmenting myself. Like the five, don't bother with those. Like they're I mean, sometimes you can win, but really what I'm curious about and what I want like a lot of people to be curious and interested about is like, you know, the logistics of all of this, right? And so can there be a $500 Akia that you can fix up and not for very much, and it's very easily turned into a spectacular palace where, you know, all this stuff happens? I don't think it's impossible. I think it's exceedingly unlikely. And so from an Akia Mondai, like an Akia problem perspective though, those ones aren't part of the solution because they're hard to move. And so a major part of where like data analytics and stuff or what I do comes in is being able to determine, you know, what are the areas that have sufficient infrastructure, that have sufficient resources, that have sufficient, you know, we've got a number of different qualifiers that we're looking for particular areas that don't necessarily mean them versus other ones that don't meet those qualifications. Doesn't mean that those ones are bad. What it means is it's easier to sell, right? And if we want to start approaching this Akia Mondai, this Akia problem, you've got to get more of them moving. You don't want to just go after that like super wacky one that like, oh, that dude with the beard who looks like a lumberjack and stuff. Like he did some funny stuff with monkeys over there. Like that one is nice, like it's a cool story and whatnot, it's fun, people laugh. But I mean, really what I'm curious about is the ones that are like viable, easily viable alternatives to living in the city.
I guess it would be good if multiple people go to the same place. Because if you're the only one, then you still don't have a store and a post office and all that.
Right. And so those ones, for me, it's not that they're not attractive. It's because I like that stuff, right? But I'm a little bit of an outlier.
For example, if you have kids.
Kids are families for me. I think are actually a little bit of a misguided initiative on part of the government. And Josephine, I'd like to hear what you have to say about this. But for me, and I'm not a fan. I don't have a family. Single, everybody. Single. Think about it. Like if you're married, if you have kids, or whatever, like you need resources. You need schools. You need transportation. You need taxis. You need buses. You need trains. You need all this. Cities are great for families. Are super duper good for families. They're not like out of the city. I know a lot of people who live in Akia who have families and stuff, and they're having a good time and whatnot. But again, they're kind of outliers. And so for me, what I'm really curious about is kind of energizing, you know, single folks or younger folks, or you know, people. I do a lot of work with people in IT. Those types of people who have fewer like maybe not roadblocks or red tape, but like hurdles to get over to make the non-metro area Akia life work for them. Again, it's not bad for families to do this. It's just much easier for people who don't have, like, by necessity, that more conservative outlook, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd like to see local governments supporting, like, hey, let's get those 2-year-olds who are totally crazy and have a little bit of money to burn. Let's get them out here.
Also, actually, I do have something to say about that. Yes. So I live in Hirado, which is, you know it, of course, Paco. And this, yes, which is a very small community all the way in Mexico Prefecture. It's a 2.5 drive from Nagasaki City, also from Fukuoka. It's really far from everything. Actually, it's beautiful though, but it is far from everything. So you can see the population is declining with every year, but the local government is doing stuff to invite young families, especially, back in. For example, I know my nail stylist in Hirado, she told me that her and her family, they used to live in Sasebo, but it's like the biggest city close by. Hirado is like an hour drive, so close. So, so she told me that the Hirado municipal government actually makes childcare, like the daycare, free if you move like to Hirado. So it's free. Well, in Sasebo you pay quite a bit of money. In Tokyo even more. So this is one of the things that local governments are doing to invite people back in and to keep these local communities from becoming a genkai shuraku of like stopping to exist. This is one of the things. There's also just monetary gifts that we get sometimes. I also got like 8 months in December from the government just to be there. So yes,
Just to
thank
live there.
you. Yeah, participation prize, I guess, which is very fun. But yeah, so they are trying to make it more nice for younger families to come and live in these small communities. It is not really helping though, because I work at the local government. I work at the city hall in Hirado, Komuin. Yes. But I also do sometimes some courses on high schools, and last year I went to one of the high schools. We have 3 high schools on the island, and it has a total of 83 students for the whole school, which is like 3 years. So everybody could fit in one classroom for my lecture. But then last week I went to the school for the new year, and they told me that now this year they have 75 students. So every year it is declining, even though they're doing a lot to keep people in. They are making it more, making it cheaper to live there. They are trying to do everything in their power. We have so many matsuris, we have so many festivals. Oh my god! Like I think in 2 weeks we have this Go Fish festival. We have to run to the sea and grab octopuses with our hands, and we also yes, actually we do. So that's it is fun, but it's still not solving the problem of like the best education, the best amusement, the best jobs. They are still being found in the cities. But yeah, I've also seen I've made some friends around Hirado, and they also like, yeah, my father passed away and this house is empty, and I don't want to get rid of it because I have so many memories to it, but I don't want to sell it, but I don't want to use it because it's now old. But then they are neglecting it still, but it's their house, so they can do that still. And it's very hard to deter people from doing that to their houses from their winnings. But yeah, I have not actually heard a lot of people rebuilding akiyas around where I live. There's just one person who is being crazy enough to also make a guest house, Remco. But it's a project that's going on for 8 years because it's so difficult to like get all the materials in and get all the permits in. Like the government wants to repurpose all these houses, but they're also making it so difficult to repurpose them because for every for every tile on his roof, he has to have new permits, and then for his toilets, and then for the sanitary, and this and this. So it is. They're doing everything to make it easy to repurpose Akia, but then also they're doing everything to make it difficult to repurpose Akia. So it's kind of like, what do you do?
How was that for you? Did you run into a lot of trouble with this?
Oh, that's the thing.
Not much. So my place is small, so it wasn't difficult to get the. No. It took 4 months to get the permission. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's still a bit
Yeah.
difficult. Yes.
Yeah. A bit difficult.
Yeah. And did you have to repair a lot, or was it? I installed a toilet, bathroom, and what's the word? Jokaso. How do you say?
Jokaso? なんだそれ
The sewage go.
Ah, 浄水
The water lines?
No, the sewage. No, I almost got it. Hold on. Septic.
Septic tank.
There we go.
Septic tank. Oh, okay, yes.
Septic. Yeah, so I had to put a new septic. So it costs a lot. Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds doable.
Yeah.
Isn't Midori, because you're Midori-ku,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Isn't that area of Sagamihara like pretty, like comparatively pretty open-minded and like kind of easier or easy-ish to work with? Like they're not the most difficult because there's a lot of people in Midori-ku, I think, who have done Akiya or farming or kind of, you know, outsider stuff and have had what seems to be like, you know, not the easiest time, but also they kind of got things going in a relatively short period.
Yeah, my town has a lot of foreign people, so I think it's easy. Yeah, and I know some hostels around my place, so maybe easier to compare to other places.
I think I'm gonna have to end the talk because it's 8 already.
Oh,
Yeah.
If you have some other topic, if you guys have any questions, it's like
Yes.
oh yeah, there was
Yes.
supposed to be a Q&A.
And also, I will do a walk through the neighborhood, through the exhibition, but you can also, of course, stay here, chill here. I will tell a bit about the exhibition, but please also feel free to ask them questions because they are, in a way, much more knowledgeable than I am about all this. And are there any questions for now?
It looks really good on the Instagram. When like you have like a lot of people that they
That's what we do it
post
for.
everything. Yeah, they post a lot of Akiya. It looks really appealing. But when I hear you talk, you guys, it's a bit discouraging. So I don't know which because I know the truth while I hear you talking, but when I see it, it's like, oh yeah, it's buy like
I'm
a
gonna do
house.
it tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm gonna get tomorrow. Just like quit my job. I spent like 3-4 months reviewing it.
Can I jump on this?
Yes,
one?
yes,
Yeah,
please.
I hate that stuff. I think it's like well intended maybe. It's also a fucking grift. They are selling false hope. Oh my goodness, because it's mostly a subscription service, right? $15 a month, and you get unlimited access to all these Akiya, blah 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 blah. None of them have any brokers. So all you're doing is window shopping, which, if you want to consider, like I pay to go to the movies, that's entertainment. So if you want to think of it like that, okay, cool. But for a lot, if not, I won't name any names, but for a lot of them, I don't know of one that actually can take you from 0 to, oh my god, I have keys. Like I actually bought the thing, right? And so I think it's, on one hand, it can be viewed as like entertainment. On another hand, it can be viewed as a step in the right direction, which is, you know, visibility and things like that, which of course are good. On the other hand, though, rarely, if ever, communicates, except with some like fine print at the bottom, so like we are not licensed brokers, and please, you know, if you want to buy something, then you have to go somewhere else, basically, which I find personally and like kind of off-putting. I am partnered with agents, so like I can make the brokerage happen. I'm not licensed either, that's why I'm partnered with agents. But yeah, the Instagram factor of it certainly exists. There's good and bad ways to look at it, I think.
It must be really. It is really misleading when you look at it. It's like.
I don't like that.
It's like at least 20, 30 times I thought I'm gonna go to an island and I don't know, like
Go there.
yeah. So it's really appealing. It's like
yeah, and too,
you know,
like,
like Japanese, like even Tokyo lifestyle is pretty like tough. And when you hear like something like that, it was like yeah, let me get an Akiya and go there and just like spend my life reviewing that.
And like there's all you need to get. Well, maybe I should not talk to Mike, but you also want to get inspections. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I have a question. We talked about like how, in terms of like how it affects the families and like how it's hard for families to get there and all that. What is like, and I'm asking because I genuinely don't know. What is like feasibility of converting them into more like artist studios, community gathering centers, workshops, even maybe like I don't know, like clay pottery studios for teaching or for even one artist or something like that? Like how feasible and realistic it is to do in today's reality?
I don't have any data, but I remember being in Onomichi. I don't know if you've been.
I was about to ask about
Yes.
that.
And I really loved what they did there. Onomichi has a lot of repurposed Akia to artist studios, to artist places. The atmosphere of the village is amazing. People are very friendly, it's very open. There's so many people interacting with other people. So I think if it's bottom up, if the people themselves think of it and want to do it, it's doable. But I don't know how you could use this to fix the whole country. So I think you could do it if you would want
But
to.
it's also, I would argue, it's also bottom up. You don't fix the country, you fix tiny bits.
Yes,
and
yes.
side effect of doing this.
Yeah.
Well,
but are there enough artists
becomes
in
a-
Japan?
I don't
to
know,
make
like
everything in
Onomichi is
Onomichi?
literally one of my favorite, not one, the favorite place outside of Tokyo. And I sometimes joke with locals that there are more interesting places in Onomichi than people themselves.
Yeah.
And they kind of, and there's nothing wrong with that, to be
Yes,
honest.
yes.
It's also okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it well, maybe not everywhere, but I mean, there's a lot of spots. Shizuoka is really popular right now, kind of, especially like Fujino is also an excellent area where Kai is. Out in Chiba, Gunma, around Takasaki, especially Kiryu area actually is pretty nice. There's a lot of like really great stuff going on around there. Not necessarily all Akiya, but there's like kind of demonstrable, sort of up and coming, younger, creative folks doing stuff out there. I think a big part of the issue though is these are Akiya. Like this is not like if you want to make $1 million, don't do this.
No.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to be in the red. You don't have to lose money on it. But if you're going into Akiya, like not even Akiya, just like rural real estate in general, that's not really a big money making market. But if you're about doing it correctly, you know, minding your budget and stuff, and considering it like a lifestyle investment and not a financial investment, that's where the real big wins happen.
Yeah.
Right? So again, to your point about artist in residencies, I'm working on getting one going up right now. There's a lot of stuff out in not Takasaki, Gifuken, Takayama. There's some really cool stuff going on up there, particularly with regards to like empty Buddhist temples are actually being repurposed for like again residency programs. Most of them are kind of currently up and coming, so I can't point at too many to say like, hey, that's a real big success. But there's people doing it, right? And I mean that's the first step to achieving success with anything, right? You just do it, figure out what didn't work, and then don't do that again, kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay. I'm afraid somebody's waiting outside, so let's move out for those who want to. I'm gonna head to the toilet real quick. That's over here if anybody still needs to go as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much.